Hello, marvelous math students. Today we're going to move on into doing more of the actual graphing of lines. So we're going to be talking about using something called X and Y intercepts. To find those intercepts or to understand what those are, that's just where a line crosses one of the axes. Where it crosses the x-axis would be the x-intercept. Where it crosses the y-axis would be the y-intercept. The important thing that's going to be happening today has to do with this. To find where it crosses the x-intercept, that means that my line, that point that I'm finding, isn't moving up or down at all. And the up or down part is the y part of an ordered pair. So that means that the y part is 0. If I want to find where the x-intercept is, where the y-intercept is, that's where the x is going to be 0, because I'm not going to move sideways at all. So I'm going to be substituting in 0. By now, you probably remember that I love substituting 0. It's my favorite thing to substitute because it makes stuff so much easier. So I know there's a lot going on this slide, but I just wanted you to see this graph. And it's not very easy to see the x and the y-axis. So right here is the y-axis. That's the y. And here is my x-axis. And the line that's graphed right here, it's crossing the y-axis at 0, 2. 0 sideways, up 2. That means that the y-intercept is 2. It's crossing the x-axis right here at -4, 0. So I went left 4, up and down 0. So my x-intercept is at -4, and that's what my ordered pair is. When we're graphing these today, we're going to be finding just those two numbers, where it crosses the x-axis, where it crosses the y-axis, and then we'll be able to graph our line. 2 points determine a line. That's the thing that you're going to talk about in geometry, but that's really what's happening in here. As long as I can get 2 points, I don't need to do all 4 points like we did when we were filling in a table of values. Today, we're actually going to be using a very small table of values, but it has to do with those zeros that make it really nice and easy. So this graph is a little bit easier to read. If I'm trying to find my x and y intercepts, on the x-axis, it crosses, and I know it's not perfect, but it's supposed to cross right there at 2. And that ordered pair is 2, 0, because I'm going sideways 2 and up and down 0. The y-intercept, it's right down here. It's crossing the y-axis at -2, but the ordered pair is 0, -2. Notice each one of those intercepts has a 0 in one of the numbers. That's going to be really important. The thing that I think is the most helpful to remember, if I'm looking for the x-intercept, the x is going to be a number that's not the 0. If I'm looking for the y-intercept, the y is not going to be the 0. It's going to be some number there. So if I have this equation, here's the equation I'm worried about. 2x plus 4y equals 16. I want to graph this using x and y intercepts. And again, this has a lot more work shown than what we're going to really be doing, but I want you to be able to understand what's happening in each of these parts. So to find the x-intercept, if you think back to that last slide, I said, if I want the x-intercept, the x has to be a number that's not the 0. That means that the y is the 0. So I'm going to take that same equation that I had right here. I'm just going to bring it down here. And instead of the y, I'm going to say y is 0. Put the 0 in right here. But 4 times 0 is 0. And adding 0 doesn't do anything. Really what's going to happen is this part of my equation just kind of goes away. Now you can probably do this in your head. You could say 2 times what number gives me 16? Well, that's going to be 8. So the x-intercept is at 8. And as an ordered pair, that would be 8, 0. Remember, ordered pairs have parentheses. Can't forget about those. To find the y-intercept, remember that's going to be on the y-axis. It means I'm moving sideways 0. So the x is going to be 0. So I'm taking that equation, put it right over here. And instead of the x now, I'm going to put a 0 in for the x. And 2 times 0 is 0. And adding 0 doesn't do anything. So really, this whole part of the equation, again, goes away. That's the whole plan today. So if you're left with 4y equals 16, hopefully you can just do that in your head. Y is going to have to be equal to 4. So the y-intercept is 4. Then that ordered pair, remember, said the x was 0, the y is 4, so that's 0, 4. What we're going to do then is take those 2 points and graph them. 8, 0 is this point over here, and 0, 4 is this point right here. As soon as you've got those 2 points, one on each axis, you'll be able to do a much better job than I can, because I can't use a straight edge on here. Oh, that wasn't too bad though. And you just draw that line. By the way, lines get arrows on both ends. Please, please, please use arrows. So on these practice problems, I want to find the x and the y-intercept, and I want to write them as ordered pairs also. So for number 1, the x-intercept, and again, I know it's not perfect there, but the x-intercept is at -3. That ordered pair is -3, 0. The y-intercept, where it crosses the y-axis, is at 2. So the y-intercept, and that ordered pair is 0 sideways up to 0, 2. For number 2, the x-intercept, and I usually do the x-intercept first just because that's how we say it, is x and y-intercept. The x-intercept is crossing the x-axis at -4, so the x-intercept is -4, so the ordered pair is -4, 0. And the y-intercept is at -3. That one is 0, -3. Make sure that you're getting the numbers and the zeros in the right place for each of those. This is what the majority of your work is going to look like today. I'll give you an equation and a tiny table of values. In this table of values, I'm already going to have the zeros in place. So when I say that I'm going to have a 0 for this y, I'm finding a number for the x, that's going to be my x-intercept, because I'm finding the x. Here, where I'm finding a y, that'll be the y-intercept. These are really going to be ordered pairs, but in a table of values, we don't usually do like the parentheses and the commas, but that's what I'm finding on each of these. So if the y was 0, when I'm in class, I just use my hand and I cover up parts of the equation that are going to be 0. You can't see that the way that I'm videoing this, so I'm going to cross some stuff off. If the y is 0, right here, 4 times 0 would be 0. And adding 0 doesn't do anything. So really, this whole part of the equation goes away. So 6 times what gives me 12? Well, that's 2. And if you wanted to graph that right away, you could. 2, 0 is right there. Now, to find the y-intercept, I'm going to say that the x is 0 this time. So 6 times 0 is going to be 0, and adding 0 doesn't do anything, so this part just goes away. So I really have just 4y equals 12. So the y has to be 3. So 0, 3 would be my y-intercept, and then you would use a straight edge and do your best to get a straight line with some arrows. For this problem, we do have to be a little bit careful with the negatives, the subtraction in here. The first one doesn't really even matter that much. If the y is 0, I would have 2 times 0, which is 0, and subtracting 0 also doesn't do anything. So subtracting 0 doesn't even need to be in my equation. What I have right now is 5x equals -10. So 5 times what number gives me -10? That's going to be -2. So -2, 0, it's right there. Then, when I know that the x is going to be 0, 5 times 0, that's going to be 0. So I would get 0 minus 2y equals -10. That worries me a little bit. I would much prefer to do that. And then I would say, well, now I'm really just adding this 0. Don't need it. Now I can just say -2 times what gives me -10. And that's going to be a positive 5. So 0, 5 is right here. And then we would be able to graph our line. One more problem. This time, everything's got negatives in there. So if the y is 0, let me do a keep change right there. -2 times 0 would be 0. And adding 0 doesn't do anything, so I can just ignore this part. So I have -3 times something gives me -6. That something would have to be a +2. I'll graph both of these at the end this time instead of graphing them individually. When the x is 0, -3 times 0, do my keep change again, this would all just be 0. And 0 plus something, don't need it. I can ignore that. So what I really have is -2y equals -6. -2 times something gives me -6. That something has to be a +3. So 2, 0 is right here. 0, 3 is right there. And then we get our line. Today your practice problems are on the x and y intercept worksheet. Hopefully, if you see me at all, you've already gotten this worksheet from me. If you are full-time e-learning, I'm hoping that you can print some of these worksheets when we're doing all this graphing stuff. If you can't, let me know and I can try to get some copies made and put them in the main office for you. But this graphing stuff is really helpful to just actually have the worksheets in front of you. The table of values that are on the worksheet already is what I'm asking you to do. So you're filling in the numbers that go with the zeros to make the x and y intercept so that you can graph that and get the line. When you're all done, there is a learning check in Schoology, and let me know if you have any questions.